Hi, this is Molly from the CMS Net Help Desk. Today I'm going to do a webinar on changes to the referral tracking, as well as showing you some changes to the case note history section, and also retaining the client when you select and view an awaiting service review. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to explain is that we made some changes to the search referral screen. We renamed two fields. The fields were and used to be called begin date and end date. It is now renamed to referral received on begin date and referral received on end date. We also added two new search fields, referral entered on begin date and referral entered on end date. So you can choose to search by those two date range. Before I show you the new changes, I want to show you how it currently is in production before the changes go in. So if this is training environment as a copy of production, so this is exactly how everything looks like today as of April 23rd, 2019. The new changes will be going in on April 26th, 2019 in a couple of days. So currently in the training environment, copy of production, the field is currently called begin date and end date, and the system defaults to a 1-month date range. With the new change currently in acceptance tests, when I click on referral tracking, as you can see, the fields, there's two new fields and the renaming of the fields. So in the training environment, begin date and end date is now, let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so the begin date and end date is now called referral received on begin date and referral received on end date. The functionality remains the same. The system defaults to 1-month date range, and you can continue to search how you normally would search. The only difference, like I mentioned, is the renaming of the two fields and also adding the two new fields. So if you wish to search by the referral entered on date, you can put the dates that you want to search by in the two fields for the referral entered on begin date and the referral entered on end date. Now before I explain, let me go ahead and go into the screen. So the referral received on date and the referral received on end date is basically a date range search that allows you to search by the field located on the referral tracking module. So I'm going to make it a little bit tinier. So that field, the range comes from this right here. So whatever date range that you put, it is a search by the received on date. So it will be the date that the user manually enters into the referral received on date. So the referral entered on date, the system populates that date here. The user cannot change it. It's basically the person that is sitting at their desk keying in the data. The moment they submit the request, the referral entered on date is the day that they manually submit and created that referral. Okay? The referral received on date is the date they manually typed in. So it can be today's date, it can be when they received the referral, whatever date that they manually typed in. Now for incoming ESAR, the system defaults the referral received on date to be the service begin date. And the referral entered on date is the date that it actually comes into CMS Net. It's created into CMS Net. Okay, so that's the difference between manually entered in referral and incoming ESAR. The referral entered on date for both is always going to be the date that the referral was entered into the system. The referral received on date for manually entered referral is the date the user manually types in the date into the referral received on field. The ESAR will default to the service begin date. So let's go ahead and go back to the referral screen. So what I'm going to do here, I have a test user in Plymouth County, so I'm going to use Plymouth. So I'm going to make my date range, I'm going to put, let's say, April 21st. Oops, that's March. So let's do April 21st to today's date, which is the 23rd, and I'm going to choose my county for Plumas to make sure I don't get any referrals from any other county because I'm just using it as a test. So let's go ahead and click on Search Referral. And as you can see here, for my referral received on date, I chose April 21st to today's date, which is the 23rd, and there's one referral on the search result. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the main referral search screen, and this time I'm going to search by referral entered on date. So this is the date that the referral actually was created into CMS Net. And once again, to make sure I don't get any other PHI info, I'm going to put it down to just Plymouth County and search referral, and I get 2 referrals. So remember earlier when there was only one result, and that's because my date range that I'm using now is based on the referral entered on date, and based on the referral entered on date, there's 2 referrals that came in on the 23rd. And on the 23rd, the reason why when I was searching earlier on the referral received on date, there was only one, because my date range was 4/21 to 4/23, and this referral received on date is 4/15/19. And it's 4/15/19 because the ESAR, when it came in, like I mentioned earlier, it will default the referral received on date to be, it will default the service begin date to be the referral received on date. So the ESAR service begin date is 4/15/19, and that's the reason why the referral received on date is also 4/15/19. So basically, to summarize, if you really want to find an ESAR or manually enter SAR and you want to search by the date the user manually types it in or when the ESAR came in, the referral for the ESAR came in, search by the referral entered on date. If you want to search on the referral received on date, functionality remains the same. It's how it's the date the user enters it in, puts the field into that date. But for ESAR, it will be the service begin date. Okay. Now let's go ahead and go to the next thing that I want to show you. Actually, let's go back. So let's go back to home page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my 2 awaiting case review, and I wanted to also show you some of the new changes that were put in. So referral tracking, we made some changes to case note history. So in the before, it used to be this column, I believe, was PDI requester info. Now it is PDI user info. And also we added the PDI user's email address. So it's the user that is manually typing in the ESAR from PDI. So we do track their name and the phone number and their email. So now we are also populating their email. So if you need to, you can contact them via email as well. Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that on the PDI ESAR, there's also a field for the PDI user to type in for questions who to contact. So it's not them, they can put in somebody else's name and phone number and the person's email. So email is an optional field. Name and phone number is required. So if there's no email, it will not display the email here. But if they did enter an email, it will display here. In addition, you can also find the information by clicking on the SAR electronic request case note. And when the case note opens up, you will see here that the requester's, the PDI user's email is also populated here as well, and along with their name and the phone number, and also the message. This is the free text that the providers can type in. They only have 200 characters that they can type in. And for questions, who to contact, the phone number, and like I mentioned, we added the email. So if they did enter an email, it will appear here. So that's the changes to the case note template and the case note history section. Okay. Now I wanted to also mention that if you select a client to view from the home page, you will basically it's considered as you selecting the client, and so the client that you selected to view will also show up on the client search screen. On the client search list. Okay. So earlier, let me go ahead and reset this. So as you can see, currently right now there's no client, and so if you move to other modules, there's also no client selected. So now I'm going to go to the home page, And I wanted to point out, let me actually bring up the bulletin for April. This is the changes that's going in. So anytime you want to see the changes go in, you can click on Bulletin and you can click on the month. So it's April 2019 is when this change is going in. And let me go ahead and maximize it. So let's go down to the bottom. So we have some system changes here where, just to summarize, it's basically we updated the system to retain the last client selected when using the home page quick link to view SARs or the referral from the home page. So if you selected 5 SARs to view on 5 clients, the 5 clients will appear on your client list, and the most recent one that you viewed will be on top and checked it, okay? The logic also, actually the logic excludes any cases marked as duplicate or incomplete status. So if there's no case number or SIN, even if you select to view those clients, they're not going to appear on the list because obviously a lot of modules does not allow you to work on clients that do not have case numbers. So for example, in the authorization module, you won't be able to do a client search for a case that doesn't have a case number or anything like that, or the coverage or the meds inquiry screen. So therefore, if you select a client that is incomplete, no case number, even though you viewed those SARs, they're not going to appear on the client list. So let me go ahead and show you an example. So we're going to click on Home Page, and we're going to click on All Waiting Service Review. As you can see here, we have one referral here that doesn't have a case number and one referral that does have a case number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first one to view, and I'm going to click on Edit View Referrals. We land on the referral information screen. And if I leave the screen, as I mentioned, since it has no case number, it will not be added to the client list. Okay? So let's go back to the home page, and I'll show you an example of selecting a client that does have a case number. So this is an established client with a case number. So I'm going to click on and view it. And we land on the referral information screen. Now if I leave to go to any other module, the client that I selected obviously will appear on my client list. Okay? So let's also do another example. I'm going to do a quick search for a SAR on a different client. So I'm going to go to authorization module, and I'm going to go ahead and search for by SAR number. And this one only allows you to select one client, so we're going to go ahead and do a SAR search. So I'm going to click on search. So as you can see, we still have our Plumas 1 here. I unselected, and I'm going to do a SAR search on another client. So now I'm going to go do a search. The system lands me on the View SAR screen for a fake client that I created. And now I'm going to go back out to any search screen. Let's go to eligibility. And therefore, as you can see, my client that I just viewed the SAR on is now on the client list, and it's the most recent one that I viewed, so it's on top, and it is pre-checked it. Okay? So now if I go to the home page screen, and if I click on All Waiting Service Review, and let me see, I was previously viewing fake client, and let's go ahead and choose Plumas Test Client. So I'm going to go ahead and click on View to view the SARs on this client. So now this is the client that I just viewed. So if I move to any other module, that client will now appear on my client list being checked as the most recent one that I viewed. So that way it prevents you from working on certain cases by mistake and things like that. So it's always the most recent one that you worked on. As long as it is an established CCS client with a case number, it will be added to the list. Okay? So I believe that is all that I wanted to show you, but let me go ahead and just make sure I didn't miss out on anything. Let's go back to the bulletin and see if there's any other changes that I need to show you. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so there are some more. Okay, so let's, so we added other, so we added other as a reason selection to reject the referral and create an inappropriate referral notice, C80 letter. If your county doesn't use this letter, then this doesn't apply to you. But if your county does use this letter from the referral tracking module, then basically let's go ahead and pretend we're going to do one referral here. So let's do a new referral. So if your county does use it, then obviously you know how it functions. So the referral status you put as rejected as inappropriate. And when you select rejected as inappropriate and you scroll down to the bottom, the reason other is what we added. So this is the new change that was put in with April, is we added the reason other for the C80 letter. Okay? Now let's go back. Let's see what else is there. And Like I mentioned, we did rename the two fields to be referral received on date instead of just begin date and end date. And we also added the two new search fields for referral entered on dates. Along with reports, because we renamed the fields and we added those two new fields, the provider referral submission, referral tracking history, and referral summary reports were also updated to rename those fields to also be referral received on, begin date, and end date. And we also added the two new fields, referral entered on and begin date, so that you can also search by those dates range as well. Okay, and let me see. And I believe that is it. So I showed you. Well, that's not referral related, so I will not explain that. So let's go, and so the reports are somewhat related, so I'll just go ahead and show you. So like I mentioned, we renamed the field. It used to be just be called begin date and end date, so it is now renamed to referral received on, and also we added the referral enter on date. So you can choose to search by either or, okay? And the other reports as well, the referral tracking history, those also have that. And also the referral summary as well. And I believe the referral, it had a defect where even if you enter in a provider ID here, it would not filter by the provider. It would just display all the provider. So we did fix that. So now it is, if you enter in the provider, it will filter by the provider. Okay? Actually, the provider is required, so you have to enter a provider for this report. All right, so that is it for the changes related to the referral tracking, retaining the clients, and the reports, and also the case note history and the template. Okay?